want to be exceptional, you can't be normal. And I think that's the hardest part, is that you're realizing like, I want to fit in and be normal and just be like everyone else. At the same time, you want to be exceptional and be like no one else.
You've likely seen this guy on your Instagram feed every day for the last 18 months, and that is because he has cracked the code to building a personal brand. Today's guest went from working a 9-to-5 corporate job in consulting to making hundreds of thousands of dollars in profit every single month, helping people all across the globe reach their true potential. Please welcome to the show, Alfie Robertson. You were saying how you really wanted to find people in your life that challenged you a bit.
For a lot of people, it's always easier to go back to your past identity than reform the new one, because going back is what's comfortable. I think being the worst in the room is the best room to be in. If you're the smartest in the room, you're in the wrong room. So just putting myself in a position where I was forced to think bigger and to look around and be like, wow, there's some people that I really admire in this room and want to be like and could learn a lot from. And that's a big part of why I created Amplify as well, was trying to create that environment for other people that don't have that existing group around them in a local town. There's no one who's been super successful in that space. You're watching their belief mechanism of how they see the world change in real time because they are achieving these things that they thought were impossible and only savored for a very select few. It's like the most gratifying feeling you could ever have.
Was there any key lessons you learned when you first got exposed to these heavier hitters?
I think that mentality of...
Alfie, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
Mate, it's been a fucking crazy last 18 months.
It has, from episode 1 to, what are you up to, 72, 73?
72, 73. It's crazy. When you look back at that time, January last year, you would have been, things were just starting to boom. You'd just left your job and kind of, you got back from Tasmania, you went away. And I remember, I viscerally remember walking down Bondi, the day you got back from this week and you had a lot of time reflecting. And I remember you saying, I want to have $1 million in my bank at 25. And I remember you walking down Bondi and saying that to me, and you had such a serious face on you, but like you're only doing probably like 20, 30, 40 grand a month or something then. And I was just like, wow, he must have had like a really profound time. It was like now 2024 is to go all in. And you did just that. How are you feeling in 2024 at the start of that year? And what was this little trip you went on to kind of slingshot you into the year?
Yeah, it was some time away with family, but to be honest, inspired. If anyone's in Tasmania, go to Hobart. I know you're heading there with your lovely mum soon. But going to Hobart and going to Mona and seeing what David Walsh has created there, it was just, I remember writing in my notes, I went on New Year's Day and you take this ferry out, it's on an island and it's an art museum, but it's unlike anything I've ever been. Not that I've been to a lot of art museums, but it's just incredible what he's built and what it signified in terms of it. It was free for a long time. I think he lost like 10 million a year running this place, but he put it in Hobart as a statement. He was from Tasmania, as a statement of what could be accomplished to one person. And I just remember writing in my notes, just like ambition was like the only word that I could really say. It was such an ambitious project. And when you go there, you'll see what I mean. Like the whole thing is a piece of art, from the buildings that you're inside. It's like the catacombs that you walk through. There's Egyptian arts in there. There's like hundreds of millions of dollars worth of artwork. And seeing that in a place like Tasmania, which isn't necessarily known for its art scene, was pretty crazy. And I think coming back, it just motivated me to like reflect on where I was, where the journey was heading. But it was also a time where I'd gone all in on the personal brand. I'd left the job that I was at. So suddenly the earning potential wasn't capped anymore. And although I was doing, I think around $40,000 a month in December, which was crazy for the time, like that was half my salary in a month. And I just couldn't believe it. But it was almost like this limit and this sky that had been maybe there before had disappeared. And it was a pretty awesome feeling.
Were you more reflective or more so planning in that time, like start of the year? Were you kind of reflecting on the year that had been, or was it more so like, all right, let's put a plan together. Let's actually see what we can make from 2024.
I think, and you'd know this better than anyone, with social media, the way that it snowballs, there's not enough time to plan because it's not as linear as you would expect. It's not like, oh, you hit this and then I can see on that trajectory. It's like this exponential curve of when it starts moving, it is moving, and you are on the ship just trying to make everything work. And so less about planning, it was more just like, it's execution, it's go time. And I really remember sitting down, my parents probably, they came back to Sydney with me and we were out at lunch and they were sort of saying like they could notice I was visibly more stressed in a way, like, and it wasn't necessarily negative stress, but there was just a lot to do. When you're receiving hundreds of messages every single day, it's a very different environment and your brain is like rapidly adapting to that. So it's funny to reflect back, and now it's become so normalized. I don't blink it anymore. I'm sure you're the same. But when you first start, it's such a new stimulus that you're getting. It's exciting. It's business. It's new business. It's an opportunity. You're getting given a platform. People are reaching out. People that you really respected are reaching out. Your network's expanding. So many things are moving at once. And it is that snowball effect. If it's not that linear path of, oh, this happens and then you unlock, and it's this, which is traditional corporate pathway, it's exponential. You suddenly hit it and it's like everything's going.
You said just before we press record, the study that they did about phones and how the stress it brings. I don't know specifically what you said and the numbers, but how much more stressful you'll be with your phone around, and you left the phone out of the room. I remember back at that time, we were just, when everything was all exciting, it was just like so much just on our phone, like doing all of our things. And naturally, maybe when you look at that, when you go, oh, there's a level of stress there. But I guess the hard thing to navigate is like the work is on the phone, everything's on the phone. Have you like being able to implement anything to restrict that screen time at all? Or would you say it's just the cost, it's just part of what you've got to do in the line of work that you're in?
I think it's more selective of when I use the phone and using it and treating it like work. I mean, I have pretty minimal work-life boundaries. My girlfriend works in the business with me. Most of my friends, we work in some capacity, whether we work together as business partners or we're at least in a similar space. There's a huge blur between my work and play, and I've sort of always loved that. But I think the importance of probably not looking at your phone first thing in the morning. It's not really a device that I think you want to be waking up to. I think you want to take that time for self. So putting in some practices there where it's blocked, particularly specific apps are blocked for the first. I think until I hit a number of steps, then it unlocks, which is quite good. Gets me out of bed in the morning.
Yeah, damn. And you mentioned your mum and dad saw you more stressed at that time. Do you kind of like, I remember you were saying how much you take away from your parents in the relationship with them. Has your dad been kind of helpful along this journey? Like, has he been someone you've looked up to kind of growing up?
100%. Yeah, massive influence. I think having someone who shares a marketing background, he's running a marketing agency in London, moved to New Zealand and ran like an influencer marketing agency of all things, completely unrelated or connected. He definitely wasn't pushing me into being an influencer, but having that and having someone that understands the industry. And that's more than anything else. I think it's the understanding. It's not necessarily the advice or the business plan or doing all that, although I love to chat business with dad. He's great for that. It's more just the understanding of the space that I'm in. And I think the respect for what I'm building, because it's very hard from people outside to understand what a personal brand is, to understand the influence you can have, to understand digital products and the space that we play in. And I think for a lot of people, even our age, they still don't understand it.
Yeah. And I guess having the backing of parents having a level of understanding on what you're doing. There's probably so many people out there that are trying to achieve even a fraction of what you've achieved, but in the limelight, social media, making this their full-time thing. But then they have their parents in their ear going, what are you doing, mate? Like, focus. Whereas there's probably a level of freedom being able to go, okay, like I don't actually have to explain myself to my parents as much, or did you?
I think dad saw the vision early on because he knew the numbers. He understood being on the other side of like an agency that works with influencers. He understands, oh, these are the numbers. And there was this make or break moment where, not a make or break, but I think a proud moment for him where he was in this board meeting and they were presenting a social media strategy. And it was for a client that they had. And the client came in, presented the strategy to him and various other board members. And they pulled up my account and were like, oh, this is like a really good strategy. It's this Kiwi guy out of Bondi, And then right at the end, he's like, oh yeah, that's my son, which is a nice moment and always nice. I think every son wants to make their father proud. So a really good feeling knowing that it's heading in that direction. But I think parents come at it at different times. Like for mom, I think her understanding was more once I started having like full-time employees and when I start to make like specific tax decisions and like looking at property and like all of those things, that's a more tangible thing that she can wrap her head around and understand as a business owner herself, but in a traditional field of medicine. She's a doctor and a great doctor as well. And as a GP, she can understand managing employees and she can understand building a practice and building something physical and tangible. So once I was speaking that language, it was a lot more digestible for her to take on.
Yeah. I think it's a good reminder though, that when you're saying that they all come on a different parts of your journey, they're going to come on board. And you're saying obviously the mum, when there's more tangible things, your dad has the experience in the social media. But I think for everyone, regardless on when they're coming on board, you can't be reliant on them and how they feel for you to take action and do the things that you're wanting to do in your life. You kind of need to do them, and whether they respect it or not, if it's aligned with you and what you're trying to achieve, you just got to do it. I think there's a massive friction point for so many people that are trying to do stuff, but their inability to take action because of potentially what the parents or the people around them are going to think is what holds them back. When you were starting there, and obviously we're walking down in Bondi and you had this big plan to create this big business, did you have a plan? You're saying it was moving quick, but like, did you have a plan on like, and did you think it was going to be where it is today?
Definitely not. I feel like these things just, as I was saying, you snowball and you get to a point where it's just, you're just trying to keep up with it in a way. But I could see the greater vision of what we were building and having that level of influence and knowing that this is just the beginning and it's going to be more refined over time. And yeah, I had more time to focus on it as well. I just gone all in. But yeah, to your point, you have to believe in yourself before anyone else does. No one is going to have that initial belief. And in the beginning, that idea is in its most fragile stage, but you've got to just pursue it anyway. And you have to have that belief. Without that belief, you're left hopeless. Like, belief is, if I could bottle up something and inject it in people, particularly our next generation, it's just belief in yourself and confidence to try. If you have that belief, you're ahead of 99% of the people out there, because you can at least start moving towards it and you're just going to try more things, regardless of if you're right or wrong. But having the belief at least enables you to try.
You mentioned the ideas are fragile at the beginning. What does that mean?
Well, as an idea becomes more refined and formed and you test and you find out whether you're right or wrong, that idea gets to a point where it's now more solid. You think like everything I do is still an idea. But if I had told you when we were, down at the board rate, that idea is most fragile and you can tell me all the reasons why it's not going to work. And for the most part, you're probably going to be right. But then in the same vein, you could be wrong. So that's where the idea is most fragile. And I think the problem is early on, people don't have a lot of belief in themselves. So when they have big ideas, they like to share it with other people to get that validation. And I think that's negative in two ways. One, they either get that validation from someone else and they go, oh, that's a great idea. Yeah, that'd be really successful. And then it's like, cool, little dopamine hit. My idea is good. Probably makes me less likely to go and pursue it because I've already had that feeling of dopamine. Or the other vein, they absolutely hate the idea and it's trash. And now I'm not going to do a stupid idea.
Yeah. The belief piece is probably the biggest superpower, I would say. Like having that belief that you can actually do it, because then you don't question the things as much when you're actually taking the action. Because if you don't have any of the belief, then you're probably second guessing all the things that you're doing, questioning whether it will work as opposed to just diving in.
100%. You have to believe not only that it's possible, but you are the person that can action it and do it yourself as well. You have to have that belief. A bit like you have to have the belief that you're going to build the biggest podcast in the world. If you have that wavering doubt, everything else crumbles. Then you're not as confident in front of guests. You don't reach out to that big guest because you think you're not worthy. Like everything else folds from that. You've got to have that belief that you can do it. Obviously, you need to take action and do all those parts as well. But I think if you have that true burning desire and belief that you are capable and you can become what you want to become, it's at least the first step.
Yeah, that's very interesting. There's one thing believing it's possible, but believing you are the one that can make it possible and bring it to life is the actual important thing. We all know it's possible because it happened before. It's like now that Mount Everest has been climbed, people believe they can climb it again. But
it was like was it the 4-minute mile?
Yeah.
Yeah. Of like once it was broke, I think it was 4-minute mile. Once it was broke, then like all of these people break 4-minute mile. So once they see someone can do it, and that's the importance of like the piece of seeing other people of a similar background as you achieving it. Because that's what begins to inject that belief. I think what becomes hard is like when you want to achieve those things that haven't been achieved before.
Yeah, and so this is an interesting concept because we all have these imaginary ceilings in our mind on what's possible, and it takes someone to achieve something greater for us to believe it. It's like once we see it, we can believe it. But then from that, you go, okay, let's study the people that have done something new, that have done a massive feat and completed it and understand what their thought was. And the first person ever climbed Mount Everest,
Sir Edmund Hillary.
Hillary.
There's on the New Zealand $5 night.
Yeah. So Edmund Hillary, he got interviewed after he climbed. Have you seen this?
No.
He got interviewed after he climbed Mount Everest, and he was like, "What made you do it?" And he said, "Because it's there."
Love it.
He's like, "Because it's there." And being able to have that belief somehow, I strip it back and I just go, the lesson from here is what are all the imaginary ceilings that we are placing in our life, and like let's debunk them. Like they're not actually, we set these ceilings and kind of subconsciously believe them to be facts, and they're just interpretations. And so being able to realize that no, that's just an imaginary ceiling. Let's just fucking go after it and see. Let's just find out. Let's just see how we can do it. Do you feel like when you're like, because a big thing about you is your ability to take action. Like you see something, you go do it. And that's probably something you do very, very well. What's your thoughts around that? Like, how do you have this motivation and this lack of friction to just taking action and giving things a go?
It's just got to be speed. Like if you have the idea or if you can see what is actionable, just go and do it. I definitely have a rule that if there's anything that takes under 5 minutes, I'll just go and do it. Like I hate building. I use lists a lot, but I hate adding things to lists. Something I've started doing recently, which is really helpful. I list out all the things I need to do and I put a dash and how long it's going to take me, like 3 hours, 2 hours, however long it is. And I sort of prioritize tasks around if you can get early momentum really early on. So if you have short tasks that you can complete and tick off very quickly, I'll do those first because it builds the momentum. And then I may work on the longer task as well. I'm very much someone that can easily jump between tasks, but I know it's not optimal for task completion. So I try to chunk out time to complete it. But it's just a belief as well. Like I see something and I go, I can do that. I can do that task. So it's enough belief of, for example, like video creation or content creation. I look at it and go, okay, someone out there is creating content. They're no smarter than me. I can do that. And that's what I think, if you can have that belief, Steve Jobs said it best. Everything around us is created by people no smarter than you. Like once you realize that everything we interact with, this microphone, this podcast setup, it's created by someone who's no smarter than you. The only difference is they just went out and did it and took action. I think if you can like ingrain that into you, it allows you to at least move towards your goal.
Mm. You mentioned earlier that there's a very blurry line between work and balance. You're saying like it doesn't really exist.
I zoom out and look at it in years and decades versus days and weeks.
Mm. What do you mean by that?
Like I'll have work-life balance when the job's done. When like whatever it is, I don't know if there's a number and I'm not really working towards that, but I see it as like I'm gonna work incredibly hard now and I'm happy to sacrifice my 20s. Although the style of work I've created is a pretty good life balance, but I do work a lot. And that may be hard to believe and if I'm doing my job correctly on Instagram, it's meant to look like a highlight reel. I think a lot of people who would know me and live with me, you can ask my girlfriend, I work quite long hours, but I love what I do, which is really important. And I sort of see it as like, I'm building the wealth now to be like a more present father when I'm, having kids. And that's a big motivator for me as well, is to be able to provide for the next generation of my kid.
Yeah, but like, let's talk about sacrifice as well. This concept is like you saying zoom out enough is it's all you really need to do is just expand the time horizon a bit, because if you think it's sacrifice, all it really is short-term sacrifice, but everything we're doing in life is sacrificing.
Well, there's opportunity costs to everything. Every decision has a downside and an upside. And just by definition, because time is finite, choosing one thing, you are not doing another.
Yeah. And so then you've got with this is people say like, oh, like just then when you were like, oh, sacrificing my 20s, it's not really sacrifice. It's sacrifice, but like the alternative is sacrifice too. Because like you're not creating the freedom for your 30s. So you're sacrificing your 30s. So it's just zooming out enough and realizing that every decision that we make has some level of sacrifice depending on what it is. The going out on the Friday night or the Saturday night or both is sacrificing the way you feel on Saturday, Sunday, Monday, and Tuesday and beyond.
Yeah, I think it's sacrificing in what other people would define sacrifice as. Like I don't really view it. Yeah, I don't view it at all as sacrifice. Like there's nothing out there on a week. Like I don't enjoy go. I did once upon a time, but I think once you're removed from it and then you go back, like I went out the other weekend to Beachy because all the boys are there. Like all the Raw Dog guys are traveling and all that stuff. And I was just reminded of like, it's the same people doing the same stuff. Like nothing has changed. And it's just a good reminder that, yeah, it's not really sacrifice, it's just a choice of where you want to put your time and your energy. And I also think the ability to travel and be able to do the work that I do while I travel, I'd so much rather explore, see new places and do that while I work. Like I love that. And that's a big part of the why I've built it the way I have.
How fortunate are we to take control of our health? We have the opportunity in this world to prioritize our health. And one of the things that I do to prioritize my health is I use this thing that is on my wrist called a Whoop. It's a game changer and it's my best friend when it comes to achieving my health and fitness goals. There's a couple of things that I like to use with the Whoop. So I'm not bombarding you with all of the benefits that this thing on my wrist does, but I like to track my sleep and more importantly, my restorative sleep, my deep and REM sleep. I change different things in my modalities and my routines to improve those numbers, ultimately resulting in me feeling better throughout my days. If you guys want to take control of your health and fitness, you can go to join.whoop.com/Chris and I will give you a free Whoop and a band for 1 month. So you can try out Whoop completely free. And if you do not love it, you can send it back, no dramas, risk free. So go to the link in the description of the show notes below or go to join.whoop.com/Chris and I'm going to give you a free month subscription and a Whoop band completely free. Let's get right back to this episode. I did a transformation post the other day and just like, it was kind of just saying that everyone starts somewhere and talking about a few different areas. And one of the ones was like the drinking and like basically just explaining that I don't drink anymore and then just showing the comparison and the amount of messages that I receive of people that are in that cycle still. And they're so confused on how, like they look at someone that doesn't drink and they actually genuinely struggle to believe how that's possible. And it's crazy getting all these big paragraphs on people feeling stuck in this cycle. They want change, but they keep going back to this thing. Like, what was it like for you being able to make this pivot in your life? Obviously, you did 75 hard, which was kind of that thing that started it really. But what was the decision to go, okay, we need to make change? And how did that look?
Yeah, again, it's just that cycle. Everyone gets in it. You finish school, you're drinking on the weekend, you go into a corporate job. Drinking is so ingrained in the culture. And I think just having at least 30 days where you take that time away from alcohol and give your brain some clarity and some time and some peace, you realize pretty quick that you're in just this cycle again and again and again. It's funny now, yeah, you forget how many people are still in that cycle once you've stepped away from it. It's very easy on the other side of it. You're just like, this is so great.
Can't comprehend. And even the smallest things of when people go, oh, I feel like a beer. It's like, I can't really, I feel like a beer. I don't know. It's like
but it's I think why people get stuck in it so long, it's an environmental thing.
Yeah.
Where like they're around work colleagues, having a beer on the Friday, you finish work, they're around people that drink, they're in environments that drink. It's very hard to quit something that's so habitual. It's a habit. You show up at a place, everything is designed around it. You know, you're at the pub, you have a drink, you're at the game, you have a drink. Everything around that we've created is focused around those things. So the only way to really do it, I think, for the 30 days is not go out and not associate with those things. And that is very socially isolating and you have to accept that. And I definitely felt a massive swing during the 75-day hard of social isolation from my existing peer group who knew me as the guy who went out and partied and did all of those things. And all of a sudden I'm going, no, I'm not coming. I'm not going to those things. Takes a bit of time to reform that identity. And for a lot of people, it's always easier to go back to your past identity than reform the new one, because going back is what's comfortable. Going back is where your friends, they're like, come out, come on. But that's why I think you need something that's like a circuit breaker. Why 75 Day Hard is so successful is telling someone I'm day 50, they're far less likely to try and drag you over to come and drink than if you're at day 5. And you're also adhering to a higher set of rules. It's 75 hard. You know what that is, don't you? And you're pushing it away from that. Whereas if I'd gone, oh no, I'm doing 75 days alcohol, Alfie doesn't drink, they'd go, that's a bit shit. Like, why are you doing that? Whereas if I go 75 hard, it's like Andy Frisell, it's this whole challenge thing. It's about mental and physical clarity. They're like, oh, okay, I can sort of see that. I can align with that. So I think having like another really good one is, I'm training for something, because people respect physical achievements. And I think if you can put yourself in a position where, oh no, I'm training for a marathon or a half marathon, or I'm training for this tournament, it levels the playing field a little bit, and people can relate to that rather than the focus be, oh no, I'm stopping drinking alcohol because I don't like where the cycle's taking me.
Yeah, they refrain you from thinking you're just some weirdo or you've got an alcohol problem to going, oh, he's actually doing something cool. You said, let's talk about environment a little bit, because I remember on that same walk down in Bondi after you got back, you were saying how you really wanted to find people in your life that challenged you a bit. You wanted to have like some crew in your life that were really challenging you in certain areas, potentially business, maybe in whatever areas you were trying to do. Was there just this spark to want to be kind of a bit more of the worst in the room, or what was that desire back then?
Yeah, it's huge thing. I think being the worst in the room is the best room to be in. If you're the smartest in the room, you're in the wrong room. And the reality there was exactly as you said before, around belief and wanting to inject myself with some belief of what I could do, where I could take this. And that's very hard to do if everyone around you aren't doing those things. So just putting myself in a position where I was forced to think bigger and to look around and be like, wow, there's some people that I really admire in this room and want to be like and could learn a lot from. I felt like I'd sort of outgrown a little bit the existing friend group that I had around me. And that's purely in a business sense. And I think because I was so career focused and still am, I crave having those people around me, which would take up a lot of my social life. But that's not to say I can't benefit a lot from those people in other aspects of life. It's people that are far more inept emotionally compared to myself in relationships, all of that side. But just purely in a business sense, I felt like I needed to increase the amount of not competition, but just competent people around me to push myself to do more.
And you definitely started meeting some pretty cool people that were just absolutely crushing it. Was there a feeling you had where you're like, oh, fuck, this is more like it. We've got some people here that are like heavy hitters and they're pushing me a bit in the area of business?
Yeah, it was funny the way it happened. I feel like I said that, and then a couple of weeks later, met a few really influential people, which is the power of social media. You are just more present on a platform, so people are aware of you and potentially they resonate with that and will reach out. So I think opening a lot of doors to more influential people, which is great, but also people that looked at the big picture and were sort of doing some pretty crazy numbers or focused on some big like family office funds that are doing the deal sizes that I wanted to be involved in. And that's a big part of why I created Amplify as well, was trying to create that environment for other people that don't have that existing group around them in a local town. There's no one who's been super successful in that space. Like coming from New Zealand, there weren't many New Zealand influencers. We had like Joseph Rakic, he was in fitness. He was like one of them. I don't really know that many others. So for Jake and I to be like right at the first, and I had a call the other day with someone who came into Amplify and he's from a small little town on the west side of the South Island. And he was like, yeah, man, watching you guys, watching Seb, watching your whole crew, all from New Zealand, it just made me realize what's possible and made me realize that like I could do this too. And that sort of is that whole thing of like when you're the first in a group or of a demographic or a location to do something, you can really inspire a lot of people to take that journey as well. So Amplify is really about creating an environment where other people can relate to, maybe not geographically in their hometown, but at least in a digital context where they can lean in and see other people who are having a go and similar mindset to themselves, and see people who are doing it really successfully as well.
Yeah, I guess getting so many people in different phases of their life joining the program, getting so many different people that are like maybe haven't had any successful businesses and hadn't had anything, and they're starting from bare bones, and then they're coming in, and then you've got people that, you know, have already made the wealth, but now they want to create the social currency of building an audience and all the different things. Was there any key lessons you learned when you first got exposed to these heavier hitters? Was there a different way they were thinking, and was there anything you kind of onboarded and applied into your business straight away to take it to the next level?
I think just thinking bigger. At the end of the day, it's going to be hard work either way. If you're making it for 10 people or if you're making it for 1,000. So you might as well make it for 1,000. And I think that mentality of go big, like every opportunity to go big, you have so much advantage. And what I mean by that as well is if you're building for 1,000, for example, we take a run club. If I'm building that for 10 people and I'm going, I want 100 people, let's say, I'm gonna build a run club for 100 people. It takes the same amount of energy, effort, and infrastructure than it would to probably set it up for 1,000. Maybe there's a few little things we need to change, pacing groups, things like that. But if I now go to you and say, oh yeah, we're building this run club, you should come down. We're gonna have 1,000 people down there in 6 months. That's gonna interest you far more than if I say 100. So you just get the following and the support from people when you think big. So I think just thinking bigger and seeing that and applying that was really useful. The other one was knowing our worth as well. I think having seen someone who has very high net worth is very influential, give us the time of day because of what we're creating online. It opened my eyes to the value of influence and the value of power. And because of that, it made me approach negotiations with things like brands and the way that people wanted to position us and talk to us very differently. I think it allowed me to see the worth of social currency, which it most definitely is in terms of influence and power, and position myself in a way that wasn't just going to be another influencer that stood by brands. It was about building a business. And if I was going to stand by a brand, I was going to have ownership in it.
Because I remember you writing on your whiteboard, we're not influencers are in the business of building brands.
Exactly.
You had that just there next to your standing desk in your room.
A good reminder, because I think there's plenty of influencers on the platform, but that was never my desire to stand by a product. I always wanted to leverage the platform I was building to build a brand and build a company that I was proud to stand behind. And that's pretty much what I've done.
Yeah. And obviously it all started with the fitness stuff and helping people get fit and healthy, and seeing the progression into the content space. Was the transition for that, or at least launching that in parallel with the fitness, was that because it was changing your life so much and you thought, okay, well, like the fitness and being fit and healthy changed my life, I'm going to transform people's lives there. But then you got this experience and found a bit of a formula to blow up on social media, and that changed your life in another way. You felt called to share it? Or how did it progress from going, all right, I'm going to have Pure Body and now we're going to launch Amplify and go into that?
Yeah, great question. It's the next problem to solve. So I think what we've found, or at least what I've seen, is when you're impacting as many lives as we have from the fitness side, 15,000 clients, and you've seen those transformations again and again, you've built such a system and framework around it. It just felt like the next logical step to now enable more coaches to impact more lives. So this is higher leverage. Again, it comes back to the skill of first you get in really good shape yourself, you build that credibility in yourself, you coach some people one-on-one, and then you can build a system and a framework for people to follow at scale. And that's what we did with Pure Body. Same thing. I grew my own social media. I helped my friends grow their social media and help monetize it as well. Then I brought on one-on-one clients, had 102 one-on-one clients, which was not recommended, but really working so closely to the problem of how do you grow on social media? How do you launch your account? How do you build a business off the back of it? And then that just led very naturally into creating Amplify, which is how I can essentially manage that at scale and create a group coaching format where everyone's going to benefit from it. So yeah, at the end of the day, if you want to impact as many lives as possible, you need to look at the highest leverage levers you can pull. And I think targeting coaches enables me to through them, target more people and change more lives.
So then you get to the next level of leverage in a sense. It's like, okay, we've built up this and I've kind of got a new badge on me now, which gives me and symbolizes and I have the capability of having more leverage. So then I'm going to focus on a higher leverage task and then you progress into that. Is that how it kind of looks?
Exactly. And at some point, software would be the highest level of leverage where I can then take software and I can use that to help people. For example, an editing app. So I'm building like a templated editing app that's going to feed into the way that people can produce content at scale, reach more people with their content, build a larger coaching business, impact more lives. So it's using each lever. As a single Alfie, I can only impact so many lives. As teaching other people and using them as leverage, I can impact more lives. Teaching people in a group coaching format where I can bring more people inside of that, I can impact even more lives. And then teaching people through software where I enable them with a very scalable, leverageable tool like software, I can then impact the most lives possible.
So does the progression have to go in that order? Because someone could listen to this and go, all right, well then why don't I just figure out a way to get to the software piece straight away? Do you feel like you need to kind of slowly build your way up, or what's the way?
It's got to be chronological. You can't jump to the software because you will design a product that doesn't have product market fit.
Because you don't know the audience like you do when you've gone and progressed the whole thing.
And the classic is people solve it for themselves and think that they know how to solve it. But until you solve it for someone else, it's just so different. The questions other people will have and the problems they will face are so different to the ones that you solve for yourself. So until you go into that agency model where you're helping other people one-on-one, that's what enables you to build the base to then build something like an info product, a blueprint, a system that allows people to follow that. Until that, you don't have a system. You just have a hypothesis and you have one result that was positive. Until you do it for a handful of other people and really understand. That's why I took on 102 one-on-one clients, because I got really good at solving the problem, at building their social media, at monetizing it. And that became the system and blueprint that I built out in Amplify.
Yeah. So I guess it's, you can jump and get an investor on board and you can build this app and software straight away. But imagine doing that with no idea, a naive look on the industry of, yeah, I did this and this is how it works. And then trying to compete with someone that's gone through every step of the process, has been the client avatar every step of the way, understands it, has coached people, done it. And I guess ultimately, as we've said, built leverage on what we know and what we can help people on. And I guess the leverage comes from understanding everyone else and helping everyone else throughout their journey. So you don't just have a narrow approach to the actual thing you're trying to do, just being yours. You're building that width. Then you can then build that leverage, progress to the next step until you get to that ultimate level of the enterprise value, the software, to be able to build something that makes great impact on so many more lives.
Exactly. And that's why most businesses fail. They get this wrong, and why they fail in the first 6 months is they find out they don't have product market fit. They built everything the product, normally jumping straight to software because they're like, great, super scalable vehicle. But they built all of the hypotheses, all the assumptions are not built on proper target market research, like really understanding what the problem is and who you're building it for. And that's the beauty of social media. Those people will willingly come to you and they will pay you to be that market research. So that's where you want to put yourself, in a position where people are literally paying you to be the market research for what you're going to build, the system, the blueprint, the software.
Yeah. And then I guess that's just where that natural progression comes in, being able to go, okay, I don't really know this at the start, but that we take one step, we find a bigger problem. We want to then go out and solve that problem. And then we go to the next thing and then we go to the next thing. I guess it's kind of how it works.
Exactly. Do the unscalable, find one skill that you're really good at, learn how to teach someone else that skill. If it's valuable, they'll pay you for it. Once you get really good at teaching that other person, you can then sell a system, an info product that you can sit by and support with other coaching, but you don't need to sell your proximity. You don't need to sell your time anymore, because the system and framework is so good that they're getting the result and following it. Creates it more scalable. And then if there's a software opportunity, you can jump into that as well.
Yeah, it makes sense. And earlier in the convo, you said that if I'm doing my job right, I should, my Instagram should look like you said if I'm doing the job right, my Instagram should look like a highlight reel. Why so? And do you think it's all positive, or just basically talk to me, why do you think you're doing your job right if it just looks like a highlight reel? we're going to pause this show for just 1 minute to talk about Switch Nutrition, which is a supplement company that have been partnered with me since the very start, and I love them. And I'm going to talk about 2 products I take every single day. One first thing in the morning and one right before I go to sleep. The Hydrate keeps me hydrated and alive, ready to attack the day, because water isn't enough to keep you hydrated. You need all the essential electrolytes like sodium, potassium, magnesium, and this has all of that in there. It also has a lot of nootropics in there to keep me focused and alive. The sleep product helps me wind down, calm the central nervous system, allowing me to get into a more deep, restful, and meaningful sleep so I can then wake up and attack the day's activities at the best of my ability. If you guys want to try out any of these products or any of Switch's amazing products, you can go to the link in the description, and that is my personal collections page with all the products from Switch that I absolutely love. And if you use code Griffin, you will get 15% off your entire order. Or you can go to the link in the description in the show notes below, or go to switchnutrition.com.au and you can use code Griffin for 15% off your entire order. I love these products and I'm sure you guys will too. They also have a money back guarantee, so there's no risk. Give it a try. You will not regret it. Let's get right back to the show. Why do you think you're doing your job right if it just looks like a highlight reel?
Yeah, I feel like this is changing over time, but obviously Instagram is to showcase a highlight reel of your life in a lot of cases. I think this is actually changing now with there being like more authenticity, more raw content on the platform. I think predominantly Alfie Gets Hard has always been this lifestyle sort of content account that documents like a daily vlog, and it's like it's on a Sunday, having a great time, like lots of these daily vlogs where I'm showcasing like the best parts of a given day in a given week. So you're already just getting this absolute highlight from that week or from that month, however often I post them. So I think with that, obviously, you know, it wouldn't be a very entertaining vlog if I just showed me at my desk all the time. And I think some people have done this really well on long form. Daniel Dalen's a great example of that. But on short form, it's probably not going to be super entertaining just sitting at the desk the whole way through. And the brand was built around lifestyle and travel and enjoyment and friends and fun and all of those components. So I think it lends itself to probably leaning into, from the outside, looking like not much work is done. But on the inside, you know, it's a different story.
Yeah. Do you think that there's any level of pressure that developed, maybe if it was self-inflicted or just a natural occurrence from gaining so many eyeballs on you? Do you think there's like a pressure that you've felt that you've had to uphold or anything? Like, how have you gone navigating this change in life, having so many people know who you are?
Yeah, it's an interesting one. I think in Australia and New Zealand and the UK, we struggle with tall poppy syndrome. Anyone who's successful, we put on too much of a pedestal and then we like to cut them down at some point. And there's this very strange relationship between, once someone's super successful, we seem to like them as long as they're not too like showboaty and showing off. Like we love a great exit story, we love an underdog story, but on the come up, as people are sort of getting there, we're pretty happy to cut people down pretty hard. So I think it's a sad reality in Australia and New Zealand. I don't quite know where it stems from, but what I've noticed, like traveling to the US, you have such a different mindset out there. And I mean, you've spent a bit of time there as well. There's this real enthusiasm for people who are on the way up. It's a helping each other culture. It's a very, let's give it a go, let's try attitude, which I think's the thing that Australians often take the piss out of US people for, but it's actually a beautiful part of their economy that does really well. Is they support entrepreneurship very heavily and people giving it a go. So I think seeing that and being in that like public sphere, like you're always going to feel a little bit of external pressure from that. It was funny going out, and I guess when people drink, often their filter comes off a bit. And yeah, this guy's like, he was a nice guy. He's like, oh, what's it like? Like surely you're just sick of it, of everyone just like knowing who you are. And I feel like for the most part, it's pretty non-noticeable, but you definitely notice if you're walking through, like people do clock you, and a lot of people won't come and say hi. I'd so much rather someone say hi.
Whispering and things.
Yeah. And not necessarily negative, like overwhelmingly super positive reception, right? But like we always hang on to the negative. I think it's just human nature.
Yeah. That's a weird phenomenon where you'd much prefer them just to come up and say hi, but next minute they're just like, everyone's just like glancing, looking over and like talking different things. But I guess there's this weird feeling of not wanting to not wanting to like come up and confrontation and all the stuff they don't want to do. But then also probably a big reason why they don't come up is tying into that culture thing of people are pedestaling others. And so they'll pedestal you and make it out to be like you're a big deal and I shouldn't say anything to you or something like this, which is interesting. Do you think the more you've gained popularity, the more you valued your time?
Yeah, but I think that's just more as I get more busy.
Yeah.
I don't think it's reflective of, like, I don't even see myself as like popular or like, I don't know, like, yeah, famous is like not even the word I'd use at all. But I don't think that's reflective of the time. I think that's more come from the busier I become. I just have less. I feel like I have less of it.
Yeah. I think there's this element of I put up a story. I was doing a question box and someone said in the question, can I buy you coffee and pick your brain? And you get like 1 million of those like messages wanting to catch up. And I just thought it might be valuable to post a reply. And in the reply I said like respectfully no. And I think it's never been easier to be creative and stand out and give me a reason to meet for coffee with you. I don't think it's a matter of like, I'm too popular to meet with you. That's not my frame. That's actually that's not got anything to do with what I'm thinking. You just look the same as the other 30 people that have done the same, that have sent the exact same message. So there's a lesson there in being purple cow and standing out and being able to be creative. So when you're trying to get in rooms of people that potentially are doing something that you're striving towards achieving and they're already doing it, doing something to give them a reason to meet with you is so important, because when you start to receive so many eyeballs, so many people want a piece of you. They want to do something, which is great. But I just think being creative in that aspect is very important, and doing things and actually putting in some effort to stand out. It comes down to even like trying to get in touch with big people or have massive guests on the show, or whatever it might be, just doing little things to help yourself stand out. But you went on this bit of a journey, obviously just saying that you're trying to go from one thing to the other, figuring it out. And then you have this new unlock where you go, oh shit, I should focus on this. I should do this. And then money starts to increase and all of these things, focus changes. Was there any moments over the last 18 months where like you've had some profound realizations or some things where it's like, oh, shit's about to change? Or was there any light bulb moments or anything?
Best realization is that like top line doesn't matter. Like bottom line is what you should be focused on. A lot of people, I feel like in the industry, e-commerce is the same. It feels like online, everyone obsesses over top line. And they love to speak on these like big top line numbers. 7-figure entrepreneur, all of that stuff. It doesn't matter. It's what you're taking home that matters. Like if you're spending on ads and you've got a 1 or a negative ROAS and you're losing money, you could be a 7-figure entrepreneur, but you could be losing money out of your bank account every single month. So I think a focus on bottom line and that something that increases the top line, I like, yes, great. But yes, that fuels maybe like a sales team or whatever it is. But I actually want to know, how does that impact my bottom line? Like if it's destroying my gross margin, then I'm not going to do it. And I think that's really important just to remember, is like in business, everyone likes to gloat about top line, but going back to bottom line and focusing on that, because that's the money you are actually pocketing and taking off the table. Like being a 7-figure profit entrepreneur is very different to a 7-figure revenue entrepreneur.
How much do you zoom out when you're making the decisions though? Because say you're having to invest in something and you might not be seeing an immediate return, but it maybe stacks up and it's a bet and you're like going, okay, I'm backing this to succeed, but I'm not going to get paid out. Maybe there's no instances this has been the case, but say it's like, all right, I'm not going to see anything for 6 months, but I'm doing it now. Like how far do you zoom out when you're making these decisions to go, okay, is it increasing top line and making my profit worse? Or like, has there been any decisions, or how long do you kind of zoom out when you're making those?
Yeah, so I guess there's a difference there. So if you're investing in the short term or investing in the long term, but you're putting money down today, you're probably looking at building something that's exitable and like a brand that has tangible value that you can exit. In my space, in the info space, you're looking at a cash cow of a business that doesn't have as much exit value because it's so closely tied to the founder. If I was building an ecom proposition, it makes sense because I can go top line. I can build it at, a 1 rise or like barely positive rise. And that's return on ad spend. And that's fine because I want to build this thing up to be doing, $1 million a month. And then I can get a multiple on that and exit out and sell to someone who's actually going to make it profitable down the line.
You're building the enterprise value. Whereas when you got info products attached to the founder, there's not much enterprise value.
Not traditionally.
Unless you branch out from that.
There's ways you could maybe do it, but traditionally it is more of a cash cow business. So the focus there is, you're not making those as big plays. Although as I start to build a brand, I am making bigger plays like that. So investing in, for example, just invested quite a lot in software, really looking to solve scaled content creation through basically had like really good MVP with the templates they've run, had over 6,000 people using those content templates, really good feedback on that, and now building an editing software to support that. So it's like, that's an investment, that's going to be a 100K plus build USD. And that's something that I can invest and be like, okay, there's some tangible value, but that's going to have exit value. So I think I just look at it and a lot of given it's a cash flow heavy business, a lot of my costs are variable costs. So like as I make a sale, there's a variable component, whether that's commissioned on the sales team, whether that's going to the affiliate that it kicks back to, that's all on commission.
Yeah. So it's only getting paid on the basis that money's coming in the doors anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then if you're doing payment plans, they're getting paid in installments as well when that comes through, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah. So everything's on cash collected.
Yeah. So for you, how does the focus look? Because people see online, they might be like, oh, he just makes content. And that's literally the thing. But like, I don't know, I could be wrong, but that's probably the only thing you don't do.
Actually, it's one of the things that's still really important because, so there's three, I look at the business very simply. There's marketing, there's sales, and there's fulfillment. In marketing, content creation for this engine, like every door I've walked through has come from that. So it's probably one of the most important things. And the thing about the marketing and the content, I still need to be there. It's not like I can completely outsource that where I never have to do anything ever again. I'm still going to, regardless of whether someone's ghostwriting for me or not, or doing copywriting, all of that stuff, I still have to sit down and physically film these things. So that part of the business, you pretty much can't escape on the marketing side. Obviously, there's things like email marketing and media buying that I don't do personally, and I can outsource those in my business. But then I look at the sales channel. That's definitely somewhere I can fulfill. I don't need to sell my own product. There's great salespeople out there that are in my business already. And then I think about fulfillment. Two sides I want to be most involved in is the fulfillment, so that I'm close to the customer and ensuring they're getting a great product, and the marketing. Because marketing is like the engine where everything starts from. And I've got to be close from that because that very closely ties into sales. And then I worry about the fulfillment, making sure that we're delivering a great product.
Yeah, right. So it is the deciding where to put your focus is kind of zooming out and looking at all of the different parts of the business and going, okay, like maybe even potentially putting a value on what they're worth in the business in a sense and just going, okay, like, is that worth my time investing? Is me being the face of the brand, the guy pioneering the brand and kind of the visionary, is it valuable that I work on that thing? Okay, sales, potentially we can get experts in that are probably better at sales than me and get them in. Okay, maybe we don't do that. And then it's just deciding where your time and energy is going to be best. You're going to get the best return for your time spent.
Well, the beauty about sales is it's a 1 to 10 return. You pay 10% for a closer and they're going to make you, 10x that, right? With every sale they make. So I think when you have those positions that are super easy and super KPI driven, it's very easy in a business like this where it's like solopreneur, although you have a lot of contractors and commission deals and all of these things, you want to have a structure, particularly if you're remote, where you're KPIing like that. And it's purely on a success basis. Where the roles get more complex is when you start billing people in on a salary. But even for content team, editors and things like that, I pay per deliverable. So everything's scalable, per deliverable, per percentage. You want to have a business like that so that if everything starts to slow down, your costs begin to slow down as well. So I basically want to avoid having a large fixed costs that come out of the business every month.
That's interesting. I guess it's a matter of kind of risk management, being able to like be malleable with what your expenses are based on the output that you're doing and the outcomes that you're getting. In a sense, it's like the results that you're getting is then, okay, you've got fixed fees associated with the dollar sign, not the actual process, I guess you could say.
Yeah, and that goes across everything in the business. I think early on, you want to avoid having a lot of fixed fees. You want people to work on commission and on success. One, because you're building a relationship with them. You may not know that they're great for the job, but also just like you want to manage some of that downside risk that if it does all fall over tomorrow, you're not still paying out people. Obviously that changes. And I think I'm in a position now where I'm going from like what feels like solopreneur, although I have employees and people in the company, to a proper company. So it's like you suddenly bring in, there's more fixed costs. To get really good talent, you are paying a bigger base and things like that. So it is a bit of a change. And that's a learning for me as well, going from, an early stage entrepreneur into like, I don't know, I guess a little bit more seasoned and being like, okay, there are costs here. Like I need to put these down and invest in this bit of a strategy and building like proper brand equity and all of those things. So yeah, it's a journey that I've been on for sure.
Has it been interesting navigating like the way you feel or the way you view the world now that you're making a sizable amount of money? Like, has there been a pivot in your life from a perspective standpoint now that you're making good money?
Nothing will feel better than your first $10,000 a month. When that hits the bank account and you can travel wherever you want, you can get whatever you want, like clothing wise. I've never had expensive taste. So I don't really buy expensive clothes. I've never been interested in cars. I couldn't tell you the difference between two models of different cars. I just don't really care. But the feeling of that $10,000 a month and the freedom to go and travel when you want, to go eat at a restaurant and buy whatever food you want, like that transition is probably the biggest that you'll ever feel. There's other stuff as well, but like the luxuries, like even take flying first class. The feeling of just being able to go travel and know that you're going away on holiday and that you're going to earn $10,000 that month and be in this remote tropical location, that is going to beat flying in first class every single time. And I think that's what I've just been reminded. Like there's not spending more, like there's always more to spend. There's water that you can buy for $10,000, probably $100,000, probably $1 million. You can always spend more because people realize that it's just a game of luxury. And if you're in the luxury service industry, you can just add the bells and whistles until the cows come home. And why wouldn't you, right? Because people are willing to pay it. But the fulfillment and the gratification and the feeling and the enjoyment, it's so small marginally.
Then what's the driving force to keep going? Because is it a love for the game, or what's the like if the feeling at 10,000, I mean, obviously you probably need a bit more than that, or you don't need any more than that, but like you have desires to be a bit more comfortable than just the 10 grand a month. But like, what's the desire when you break these $100,000 months, $500,000 months, $1 million months? Like, what's the desire to keep going from there?
To build and impact lives at that point. I think when you see the impact and you start seeing the results and you see the people that come through and have, you're literally changing lives. You're giving people that first $10,000 a month, $20,000 a month, $50,000 a month, $100,000, and you're watching their belief mechanism of how they see the world change in real time because they are achieving these things that they thought were impossible and only savored for a very select few. It's like the most gratifying feeling you could ever have. And I think for me, long term, although I enjoy helping get people in shape, working with people that are disciplined enough to already get themselves in shape, which is sort of the proposition around Amplify, and working with fitness enthusiasts that have already put the work in, working with those people is fantastic because they understand delayed gratification. They understand skill stacking and going through the process and sacrificing in the short term. So that feeling when you take someone who already has the base mindset and skills, but you just fine tune it with a bit of structure, a bit of business acumen, and they get to see their own potential, is like the most fulfilling thing ever.
So the money's the byproduct of that. It's an indicator that you are making change on people's lives because people are transacting, which means the system must be working in a sense.
100%. And then it's opening doors and access as well. And that's why I continue creating content. the network and the access, we were speaking about before, having people reach out that I've watched for years on YouTube who are some of the biggest people in the industry that want to work with you. Like what a gratifying and validating feeling. Like for an entrepreneur to be tapped on the shoulder and say, hey, I heard you're the guy. I want to work with you. Validation, mate. It's like there's always going to be an element of validation. But that feeling is awesome. And you can't replace, no amount of money would ever fulfill that. And I think ultimately a lot of us are just seeking validation, whether it's external, internal, from family near us, from the broader public. We all crave to be valued.
Yeah. It's so I've been working one-on-one with a mentor, Jim Fortin, and we've been working really closely on like subconscious reprogramming. And it stuck with me, that convo we had in Bondi where you were just like, you're being open and honest and we were chatting with me and you were saying about like the feeling I had, felt the need to like be validated externally in a sense. It was like what is the reason you show up in a certain way? You weren't saying these words exactly, but like showing up in a way to be validated in a certain way or to prove yourself or whatever it was. I mean, unpacking it deeply with the mentor, Jim, to figure out like what the reason is. And it's interesting when you actually look at it, when you look at this external validation piece, you want external validation. So you show up in a certain way, which isn't probably aligned with you and like an authentic version of you, but it's only short-term external validation. The way to actually get externally validated, and this is the irony of it, the way to actually get externally validated is by doing you, being you, and people are gravitated towards the authenticity. You start to make extreme change and get insane results in business, in your life, in your career, because you're being the one unique thing you have, which is you. And then a byproduct of that is all the external validation comes in. And it's like focusing on being validated and making your decisions on the premise of being externally validated can only get you so far. It can only get you this short-term validation, but you get none in the long term because you're not actually building yourself up the way you are. And it was a really interesting pivot being able to just unpack like there was a few questions. One of them was, why do I feel called to show up as perfect all the time? It's like why do I feel the need to be perfect all the time? And like unpacking certain questions like this, and I found it's been an interesting pivot. But what I think has been really good, and even like Jake does this really well, of being able to just be unapologetically him
to some detriment at times.
But yeah, I look at it and go like, he'll go on a first date and he'll chew that bone to the end of it, right? And I think there's nobility in that, because I think it can get you like there's a level of respect that you can get from someone that can be yourself. I think you guys have done that really well, I'd say.
I appreciate that. I think it's still something I'm working on for sure. Like I'm not a finished product by any means. And I still feel external pressure of like trying to fit in and do these things and being on that pedestal and being a public figure. And, like I still feel all of that energy when I walk in a room. I think I have a pretty high emotional intelligence. So when I walk in a room and I feel you can feel the energy and the vibe change when people clock in, all those things. So I think there is still a part of me that craves that external validation. But the main thing is I just want to fit in at the end of the day. And that's very hard when you also want to be exceptional, because they work completely apart from each other. Like by definition, if you want to be exceptional, you can't be normal. And I think that's the hardest part, is that you're realizing like, I want to fit in and be normal and just be like everyone else. At the same time, you want to be exceptional and be like no one else. And that's the decision that you have to make. And you have to just make that decision, and you have to take that separation and go, the cost of being exceptional is that I will never be normal.
Yep. And then when you are not normal, it's harder to find connection, because the people that are abnormal are harder to find because they're not normal. And so I think with that, when you embark on the journey, especially early days, there can be this level of isolation. And it's not about the lack of people, it's a lack of connection.
I think, yeah, the way I've wrestled with it as well, though, is I can be exceptional at business, and not everyone wants to be exceptional at business. And then someone else can be exceptional at something else, and I can be normal at that. So it's not to say, oh, you're normal, I'm exceptional, we can't talk. It's more just being like, when we talk about business, we're probably going to have different views on it. And I'm probably going to be speaking at a different language than you, who wants to stay in like a corporate job, or you want to stay in whatever job that you're in. Like, we're just not going to be speaking the same language. But if we talk about something completely different, we may have exactly the same views on training. Like, we may train identical, and we may eat the same. And we may have all of these shared things about skiing, and we may both be exceptional skiers, and we could connect on that. And I think that's what's really key to remember, is we're not as one-dimensional as sometimes we make up. Sometimes we go, oh, normal, exceptional, normal, exceptional. It's like, you can be exceptional at one thing and pretty ordinary at another. And I'm ordinary at loads of other stuff. I just happen to be good at creating content, good at teaching people how to create content, and pretty good at business.
And then, but then the thing with this though is like being, I guess the thing is the connection piece comes from, I think, relating to someone as well. When there's a disconnect and you can't relate in any field, like, you can get along with someone that has like similar interests, for example, but say you're meeting with someone and maybe you're so heavily into business at the moment and your life kind of evolves around that, and you go and meet with someone that kind of doesn't really talk about that or whatever, and you lack interest potentially in that field, it's going to be hard to connect because you're not going to be very excited. I think maybe the only way it can work is if you're interested in something and they're really exceptional at that thing or whatever it might be, because there can be like this disconnect where you struggle to relate to the people. And I think what happens, at least when I'm speaking for myself, is when I struggle to relate to people, I am less motivated to want to hang out with them and spend time with them. So then I won't hang out with them at all, in a sense.
Yeah, I think it's like shared interests is a really important part. Like, I enjoy skiing. If I was to sit here and talk to you about skiing, we may not share that interest. So you're probably going to switch off. Now, let's say you enjoyed skiing, but you weren't a very good skier. I'm quite a good skier. So then it's like, we're now talking at different levels. So we could probably have a pretty good conversation because we have the shared interest, but it's not going to be as fruitful of a conversation as if we were both really good skiers. And I think it's the same with like all aspects of life. It's just how much interest overlaps, and then that level of competence in that interest as well.
How have you gone navigating friends? You've seemed to keep like a good, strong group, but how have you gone navigating friends with all the change in your life? Like, being able to kind of accelerate all the things you've been doing over the last 18 months. How have you gone navigating friendships? And has there been a period at all where it's been harder to relate and connect with the people that you had in your life? We're pausing the show for just 1 minute. I am not in the attire that I normally record podcasts in, and that is because I'm about to go to the gym. And when I go to the gym, I wear nothing but Gymshark. I absolutely love these guys. And if you've not heard of Gymshark, you're probably living under a rock. And that's because they are the leaders in the world, and they have been for such time now. I only wear the blue one because it brings out my eyes. That is a joke. Chris, shut up. These clothing is amazing. They feel so good. If you guys want to try out any of Gymshark's products, you can go to the link in the description or the show notes below. And if you use code Chris Griffin, you'll get 10% off your entire order. Once again, go to link in the show notes or the description below and use code Chris Griffin and kit your wardrobe out and get some new clothes for you to wear at the gym or on your Sunday long run. I'm going to go to the gym, but you guys get straight back into this episode. Has there been a period at all where it's been harder to relate and connect with the people that you had in your life?
No, it's exactly as I said. So it's a repositioning of interests. So right. I don't speak now to my friends, like my close inner circle friend group. I don't really talk about business.
Yeah.
Because it just wouldn't make sense for me to be talking about business to them. Like, the problems we're trying to solve are very different, and they're not even trying to solve business problems. They're still worried about, what to wear on the weekend and go out with girls, and that's their interest, and they love that, and that's great. But when we talk about the gym, yeah, we can talk about that. We can talk about travel. We can talk about maybe skiing. Like, there's so many things that we can find. And I think you've just got to accept that like, yes, you may have this burning interest in business, and for you, maybe it's podcasting and travel and mindset, but there's going to be some friendship groups that don't have that. And I think it's just selecting the interests that you speak on.
That's quite profound. So as you said earlier, we're just not so one-dimensional like we might view it, in a sense of we might be so fixated on something, and then potentially we could feel like we're drifting apart from these friends. But in reality, we're just being a bit stubborn on what we should actually focus and talk about. And when we zoom out enough, we can actually find similarities, common interests, and align those interests and be able to have good conversation, have good connection with these people in maybe a different realm to what we're normally doing, in a sense.
The difficulty is to become exceptional, you have to make yourself one-dimensional. That doesn't mean other people are one-dimensional.
Right. So to make yourself exceptional, you need to become one-dimensional.
You need to focus on one thing, pretty much, and you need to be thinking about that thing all the time. Anyone who's super successful, that is all they think about. Like I wake up, all I'm thinking about is my business and marketing it and building it. When I go to bed, it's all I think about all day, and I can't say, and I love it. And I truly, truly enjoy every moment of waking up and solving these problems that I'm faced with. But that is all I'm focused on. And that has detriments in other parts of my life. I wouldn't say I'm as good of a friend as I would if I wasn't focused on this. I don't think I'm as good of a partner. And all of these things, like I don't think I'm as good of a son to like my parents, because I'm so focused. Like if I call my dad, it's about business, and that's all we're talking about. And that's not to say I don't check in and do all the other stuff, but that's such a priority. And even I call my dad more than my mum because I lean on my dad more as a business pillar. But I should really call them equally and just be a normal son. But I'm so fixated and focused, and I've made myself so one-dimensional. And I think that's what's hard, is that you get rewarded for being one-dimensional in your dimension, in your vector that you're playing in. But the rest of the world, when you interact with people socially, don't reward one-dimensional people. They reward all-rounders who can relate to everyone. That's who's going to have a larger circle. That's who's going to have the best conversation. So when you become one-dimensional, but you're surrounded by people who are multi-dimensional and have a more balanced life, it's hard to relate to those people.
Yeah. And so there's probably, and that comes into that lonely chapter thing, because you can kind of get to this next level where you're meeting enough people in your life that are kind of one-dimensional in their own realm, but you're still very interested because you respect someone that has been able to have that ability to go one-dimensional, go all in on something. And so they can be in a different realm, in something that you're not even potentially interested in on a day-to-day, but you can still connect because like you're both doing cool things. But it's about it's that middle period transition from going, okay, I've got this friend group, which is one thing. I'm trying to be one-dimensional and go all in on my thing. I'm potentially like kind of not aligned interests with my friend group now, but then you're not really at that level of being able to meet these other people that are one-dimensional doing these cool things because you haven't built yourself up just yet. And then there's that weird in-between phase where people go through where they kind of struggle, maybe have a little identity crisis, or they struggle to connect to the people that they once had, and they need to meet these other people.
But the question is like, do you need to meet them?
Yeah,
do you need to meet other one-dimensional people?
Yeah.
Because then you're just in this one-dimensional echo chamber of everyone's just super hyper-focused on what they do. Or do you just need to understand that you're being one-dimensional in that, and you need to find a way? Is it switching off? Is it relating to these people? I think it's just an appreciation that not everyone thinks about the world
Maybe
the way
it's
you do.
A respect piece for the friends as well. Respecting their outlooks on life, because then it can allow you to not be as stubborn about your way of living.
Yeah, 100%. I think it comes from respect. And I think what happens is over time, because you live in your one dimension, I would imagine anyone who's going through this, who's building their one dimension and their view on the world is getting so fixated on where they want to go. And don't get me wrong, this is going to make you accelerate your growth and journey, because you are not thinking about all the other distractions, what's going on Friday night, Saturday night. This is how you actually move at a rapid speed. And people look up and go, how did that happen in 18 months? He's done so much. It's like, yeah, well, I was literally focused on one thing for 18 months. Like that's all I've done since I started. And I think that's what's really important to remember, is that like, this is what's going to make you move really, really fast, but it's also going to separate you from a lot of people. I think you need to look up and just realize that the people around you aren't in that. And you're going to put people in your one dimension on the pedestal. Like if I think like for you, if you go, who do you look up to the most? Like probably like Chris Williamson, the people at the top of the podcast game who are killing it. Like you would be looking at them and they are your idols. If you were to ask like maybe a friendship group of who their idols are, it's going to look very different. So it's just realizing that your Northern Star is very different to them. Doesn't mean you can't be friends with them. Doesn't mean you need to isolate yourself from those people. Doesn't mean you need to wait until you find other people that have the same one dimension as you. I think you just need to be more aware of where you're at on that journey and that they may never go into the one dimension land and it's not for everyone.
I think it's quite profound thinking about this because there's this massive, and I haven't really thought about it in this way, which is so good. There's this massive trend online about like leaving your old friends and meeting your new friends. And there's this very common thing where people feel like they need to leave their old friends so then they can meet the new friends. But what's an interesting thought, if we zoom out and we actually look at, say, your friend group, you were in your one dimension, staying in your lane, respecting them for everything that they're doing. But a byproduct of that is they've gone, fuck, he's crushing it. I want to do that. And it's like
chain reaction. I still remember the looks I got when Jake and I were holding up our food, doing our POD eats or whatever it was. Like the looks the boys would give us back when we were doing that. And now they're all creating content. Not saying that they're holding up the food themselves. And maybe that content to them will always be out of touch. But just the slow acceptance of it. It's like first they laugh, then they ask how that changed over time. But yeah, I think if you focus on one lane well enough for a long enough period of time and you're successful enough, like people are going to look over the fence at some point.
Yeah. I think there's a massive lesson in there. I think being able to look at that and go, no, the reason I feel like I need new friends is because I'm being stubborn with my way of living. And I think that this way is the only way. And because they're not matching that, I'm going to build up resentment towards these friends. No. Let's not build up resentment towards our friends. They're our friends. They've been there. They've done all this stuff. Let's respect what they're doing, their views on their life. Let's hone in on ours, chase our dreams, achieve all the things that we're trying to do. And if we don't even know what that is, fucking take some steps in the dark and figure it out. And then a byproduct of that is if you're paving a way, if you're doing something that's inspiring, not only are the people online that are seeing you are going to be inspired, but more importantly, your friends are going to be inspired even more to make change in their life. And that's the thing that matters. It's not about changing these people. The best leaders in the world don't tell you what to do. They lead by example. And a byproduct of that is people go, I want to do that. And I think that's quite a profound thing. You can see that you've done that with your friend group. And yeah, it's awesome.
It's not leaving your old friend group. It's stopping being influenced by them. And that's the key piece. Is the influence that's the issue. If you're still being influenced by your friend group and they're the ones that are dragging you out and you're not posting on content because you're worried about what they think, that's the thing you need to shed. It's that own fear and you need to put the blinkers on and you just need to focus on yourself and go into that dimension. And it's a bit of a rabbit hole. Once you start, it's incredibly addictive because you see how much progress you can make. Yeah.
Removing the level of influence that these people have on your life is the thing that matters. That makes so much sense. I think it's profound. And what's next for you, man? Like what's something that you're working on at the moment and what's the plan for the next little while?
Yeah, I think really solidifying what we're doing in the space and formalizing it from, as I said, like solopreneur, building a company, even though plenty of like employees and contracts and all those things into like a proper company where you're like, probably looking at some office space, probably really formalizing what we do from a brand building perspective, and just reinvesting back to build a proper brand. I think right now it's very much been me and what I want to create, and I want to build a brand and build something that's going to stand the test of time in the education space and just give people more access to the tools that are available. We've got a crazy wave of content creation and AI enabling the most crazy techniques of creating content. The tools available to us now, it's never been easier or faster to create content. I think that's only going to rapidly increase. So knowing how to leverage those tools is so important.
Yeah, so the goal is trying to kind of fast track people to success in these fields by knowing all of the know-hows to help do that. It's like, let's not drop on quality. Let's just increase quantity and quality in a shorter way and a more effective way. Because I think there's probably a gap from people that have not started and where they need to get to succeed, and the gap's quite big. And I think ultimately you're just trying to shorten that. Go, okay, like how quickly can we get them from having no idea to creating world-class content?
Yeah, exactly. Well, it's like, I went from 0 to 100K followers in 100 days. Marley then went from 0 to 100K in 6 weeks. So like 2 months. And it was like, that was the testament of being around people that had done it before and then got shown it. And now we're seeing, people hit 10K followers in like their first 20 days of posting, and we're seeing it shorter and shorter. And I think the time we're in now, why there's no better time to start, is we're in this interest media phase of, it doesn't matter that we've been on the platform for 18 months, 2 years, 3 years. All they care about is who is the most interesting today. And you could be creating an account for the very first time, but if you make the most interesting content, if your ideas are relevant, if your content is engaging, you are going to outperform someone who's been on the platform for years. And that's the beauty of the space that we're in. It's completely democratized. It's not held up on big accounts that have been there for a long time. It's just about who can create content today and who can make the most interesting content. And I think the trust that people build online is faster than ever because of the volume of content. People really feel like they know you, and not, they know you because they've watched you for years. They know you because they've seen 4 pieces of content, but the content feels so real and authentic. And I'm so glued to my screen and in it that I really, really connect with this person. And it's a pretty crazy time.
Yeah. If you say that the time on the platform doesn't matter, what's the way to build longevity in it? And how do you create that long-lasting brand?
Great question. So I look at celebrities and I go, you change with the time. The Rock is still not trying to be in the WWE. He's changed with the time. His brand has transcended time because he has changed and evolved with it. And a personal brand, and same with a physical brand as well, in terms of, like a more business brand, that also needs to change with the time. And you see great brands that navigate the space and ones that don't. The things that Nike stood for years ago would be very different to what they stand for now. Same with a personal brand. As you develop, you need to have your brand reflecting that. Your brand is going to change throughout time. And I think it's really important that you reflect the changes that are happening in your life. Like you as family man Chris one day is going to have a very different perspective on the world to you as Chris today. And that needs to be reflected in the content you create. I think as long as people follow that journey, they're getting the most updated version of you over that time.
And then when you look at people that are the most famous in the world, which is interesting, talking about the actual word famous, it's a weird word. I actually don't think it's got anything to do with the number on your screen, rather like the popularity you have in a geographical sense, I think. Because if you look at someone that is properly famous, they don't need to be posting on Instagram every day to be stopped on the street and all of this stuff. I look at the people that are when you look at the people that are the most famous and you look up the list, look up most famous people in the world, almost all of them are actors. And they're all like kind of doing something outside of the social media, and people are following them for them.
But also you've got to remember that actors act in movies, and the best actors are in the best movies that stand the test of time.
Yeah.
And those movies are watched again and again and again. So it's just a different content strategy. It's like making a killer YouTube video that's so, so good that people come back to it every single time. And there are YouTube videos that good.
Yeah.
And that is what actors do, is their content is condensed into the film, and think how long production team, everything that goes into making a film versus that 15-second reel. And that's why you have to post a lot of 15-second reels to get as famous as the actor.
Yeah, repetition. And that's why when you look at people like Jake Paul and Logan Paul and stuff, it's like—
But they've changed, right?
Yeah.
And they've changed with time.
Yeah.
And that, like, hats off to them. Incredibly impressive personal brand journey, from going from dancing on Vine to now boxing, selling out, being paid like most pay-per-view boxing, other ones in the WWE, crushing it. Like, their brand has transcended time. They've escaped a few cancellations, and they've transcended time because, or at least this generation worth of time, not, Shakespeare level time, but it's because they've stayed up and they've stayed relevant. And I think the way they've done that is, as they've evolved, as they've grown up, they've moved the brand with it as well.
Yeah. I want to commend you, dude. I think it's so cool to just watch and follow along and be a part of stuff and just see the progression, how cool like everything that you're doing is, and just being able to get like what I think the big lesson is really this action taking piece and the belief. If you tie in this ability to take action and then have like absurd belief in yourself, and not just a belief of it happening, belief that you can make it happen, as you said earlier, tying those two together is like this recipe for success. I think you've done that and hit the nail on the head, and it's only the start, which is so exciting. So is there anything you want to say just before we wrap up? Or
No, I really appreciate it. And likewise, I've loved watching this journey. I feel like not many people would know, but yeah, we did the first episode together. That was like very much the start of this, even the pocket being named after our friendship group.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's been beautiful to watch and seeing you climb to new heights. I think Austin's going to be a really good move. And yeah, I'm excited. I've been watching from the sideline, but supporting all the way.
Awesome. I appreciate you, dude. And if you guys have made it to the end, screenshot this and tag us in your Instagram stories so we can just let you know that. Big thank you for watching the show, and appreciate you guys for making it this long. And leave us a 5-star review on Spotify or Apple. It really helps the show grow, helps us keep getting awesome people just like Alfie back on the show so we can keep on growing together. But we're going to sign out for this episode and this week, but we'll see you guys very, very soon. Bye-bye.
Thank you.